Hi, Pete. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing okay. Hi, Vanessa. Hi. Can't see your names actually. My eyes are getting worse, which is funny. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. I hope everyone's doing really well. I didn't advertise this live at all. I just thought I'd come on and just answer a few questions, but update you with some what's probably going to be very important evidence in this and how it's linking in with scripture. So I'm just going to go through some of that with you. Just wait for the numbers to go up a little bit, and I'll try and make sure I've got the information in front of me in the right order. It's pretty big and relevant, I think, what I've found today. Sort of going over theories as well, and how certain things tie in, like transhumanism potentially, and how that ties in with the blood. So just bear with me for a minute. I'm just going to give it, try and sort this, and then I will be with you. I'll go with the, I'll just start from the beginning of what I've found. And if you don't already know who I am, then I was in the police for 18 years. And since 2022, I've uncovered irrefutable evidence of decades-long government fraud, and it's all being centralised to the Vatican, the Collider technology, and the blood of the children. And well, not just the children, but predominantly the children, it seems. I'm going to come to the blood element in a minute, but just to make it a bit easier for me, I'm just going to start with my first few screenshots that I've just taken from my research today and over the last couple of days. And I mentioned some of this sort of, but not to the extent that I'm going to over the last few days. So in this month, a contact sent me an article regarding historical child abuse at the Sherborne School in Dorset. And as I said, I've mentioned it a few times over the last few days, but I'm actually going to just tell you what I found on it. And that information was an article from October 2022, which is as I'm escalating the fraud. And that is the exact same month that they held an interfaith meeting with the Pope and Pietro Parolin, who it looks as though they're trying to use for the prophecy of the popes. And when I researched that meeting, it linked to the Three-Eye Atlas Comet, and it also linked to Christchurch immediately, which is obviously the town where I lived and worked, and that's twinned with Christchurch in New Zealand. I'm sorry, I do need a shave. I'll have a shave tomorrow. So this article was from that same month regarding former Sherborne school headmaster Robin Lindsay having possibly abused thousands of children. Yeah, I've mentioned that. The article states Robert Lindsay taught at Sherborne Preparatory School for decades until age 70. He was found to be a fixated paedophile by a tribunal in 1998. He was never prosecuted, interestingly, not surprisingly, and died in 2016 after developing dementia. Well, 2016 is obviously when the Pizzagate scandal was being exposed. Once I've gone through this, a couple of these other bits, I will get to the very important blood evidence that I've found and how that possibly relates to transhumanism. And we can talk about... Oh, why is that not letting me? Get off. It's got this... I've got to press back, haven't I? Another article, which I found slightly earlier from 2016, states that this headmaster was able to continue in his role for decades, despite the concerns that had been raised about him. Robin Lindsay. I was also sent an article regarding Sherborne School, and it had a Fleming report. Yep, Fleming, about the schools in Sherborne, and it was from 1944, and it included the following information. Between 1947, the year of the Doomsday Clock, and 1951, the day before the Stone of Crone or Stone of Destiny that's required for genuine coronations went missing. 22 Dorset boys attended Sherborne School on state bursaries. The bursary scheme grew out of a report completed in June 1944 by the Fleming Committee, which, as part of the post-Second War desire for social reform, considered the relationship between Britain's leading public-private schools and the state. The committee recommended that ultimately 25% of pupils, boys and girls, at public schools should be state supported under national bursary schemes for children who might benefit from boarding. The committee defined a public school as a member of the Governing Bodies Association, or GBA, or of the Headmasters H Conference, HMC. The HMC company features at critical times throughout my document. It links through a lot of the research. This is a headmasters organisation. So this looks as though what they were doing is they were setting up, targeting the children from 1947, involving the Flemings, and specifically this relates to Sherborne. And as I've told you, Sherborne's very relevant because the leader of Qatar was educated there. So he was very likely subjected to being victimised whilst at this school. And this is also, Sherborne is where, as I've said, the one of the creators, or what led to be the creator of artificial intelligence, also went to this school. So you can see how important this is. It's in Dorset, and they've got a group of schools, and the leader of Qatar ended up owning a huge share of the Canary Wharf building. And that building, it seems, was used to assist in the agenda moving forward into the falsified prophecies and everything that I'm talking about. Because what they were doing, it looks like, is using that building as addresses for Companies House, and there was nobody affiliated for that specific company within the office that they were registering it with. So it looks as though that was set up specifically, and that building was being built in I think it was I want to say 88, 89, as the World Wide Web was being developed for CERN. So it all ties in. And Margaret Thatcher was in position at that time. She's implicated in it. John Major took over, I think, after her. He's implicated in it. And it was around the time when they changed over, it was halfway, or not necessarily dead on halfway, but through the Gulf War, which is all very relevant because the Gulf War was a deception, according to the research, and a collaborative deception with those that they positioned in the Middle East, which would have included probably the influences and the likes of the leader of Qatar, in with the leaders of the West. And of course, that ended in 1991. David Icke came out and said then the world would be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis, etc. The article goes on to say a mountain climber who took part in the 1933 British Mount Everest expedition, Longland, was also a broadcaster appearing on BBC Radio's Round Britain quiz and questions. After lecturing in English at Durham University, Longland joined Durham's Community Service Council, and for 30 years from 1940 until his retirement in 1970, was involved in educational management in Hertfordshire, Dorset, and finally Derbyshire. He was also a member of 18 national commissions, committees, and advisory boards. I think that's going to say bodies. This creates an important connection where Justin Welby, Durham this is, had been the former Archbishop of Canterbury and is massively implicated in the Doomsday Cult evidence and the international government fraud. And there's been a staged cover-up in the supposed sexual abuse. I think it's primarily hiding the blood of the children, but the Justin Welby investigation, and John Smythe was compromised with a lady called something Gibb, Moira Gibb. And Moira Gibb supposedly did an independent investigation in relation to that scandal, and she also did an investigation into the South Bank scandal. Well, those two scandals regarding child abuse links massively into the evidence of the Doomsday Cult and all into the Vatican again and everything I'm exposing. It is interesting, yeah, but I think I've said it anyway. But the Boy Scout movement in all of this is very, very relevant. That ties into the investigation in relation to the South Bank scandal, because it was somebody who was on a scout camp, an adult, that was investigated for that as part of the South Bank inquiry. Baden Powell has already been linked into this, going back to when the Boy Scouts were first formed and the Girl Guides, etc. And the first Boy Scouts camp was on Brownsea Island in Dorset, where my investigations began, just down the road from Exbourne Manor, where the Flemings have significant prominence in that county. And of course, they were the ones that held the meeting to get rid of me. They were the ones that instigated my removal after I continuously refused to file forged bank documents. And remember, they are linked to religious establishments, and they are involved in forging and filing forged bank documents. Okay, so they are an infiltration of moral conscience. They are not of our Creator. They are not of what they claim to be in that church, which is about love thy neighbor, supposedly in Christianity, for example. Thou shalt not kill. They've done the opposite. The article also mentions Richard Attenborough and a book that he completed called The Guinea Pig in 1948, which is the same year as the Israel-Arab War. And Richard Attenborough was already featured in my research and links almost immediately into the Duke of York Theatre, which will obviously relate to Prince Andrew, who's the Duke of York. The Fleming family, as I've said, are hugely implicated in the criminal network, the apparent crimes against children, and how that relates to the blood of apparently tortured children. And we're going to come to that in a bit more in a minute. A company South search, remember his name was Robin Lindsay. So when I search that, it comes up with Robbie Lindsay, not Robin, but of course there's been no verification. This has been deliberate by them for a very long time, everybody. All right, enabling them to launder money into the agenda, the collider technology, the blood of the children, and where this is all heading. And this company shows a Robbie Lindsay Limited having been incorporated in 2016, which is when the Pizzagate scandal was being exposed, and having dissolved in 2017, so the year that Donald Trump was positioned. Robert Lindsay, and so it says Robert Lindsay on the incorporation document, not Robin. Okay, so I can't be 100% sure it's him, but look where it leads. And Giant Group PLC is on the incorporation document. That has already been linked almost immediately to Chris Simmons, who's the head of the whole court system in the United Kingdom, okay, via my research. So that's not going to be a coincidence. A direct link from that name, the child abuse, hundreds of thousands of people potentially abused, straight to the head of the legal system for the United Kingdom. It also has on its incorporation document 788 to 790 Finchley Road, which means it links directly to Carter and Coley, who's the accountant for Exbourne Manor, which is where my investigation began. And that also that address links to international dictators, mafia, corrupt politicians. There's a lot of connections to that address via Rupert Lowe, criminal firearms companies linked to that address, which looks as though it's linking in with the hunting of children on estates. I'm not saying Rupert Lowe is involved in hunting children, but he is connected almost immediately into evidence that suggests there's the hunting of children taking place. So he's compromised. Another internet search reveals a photograph. Oh no, that's something else. Okay, so that's all I was going to say about that side of things for now. I'm just going to cover the Fabian Society a little bit. If you're not aware of the Fabian Society, they've been around for a long time. They've a huge part of the Labour Party that's in now. I mean, they're all working together. It doesn't really matter what party they're on. They're all part of this. But a huge part of the Labour Party are Fabian Society members. The research from somebody that has a lot of influence in that, whose surname is Shafik, can't remember her first name, links straight into or very quick, almost immediately, into the British Museum Library, which means the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini, because that's where the letter was kept until it was removed on the year I was born. So that links into the 3 World War deception and bringing about the light of Lucifer on Earth, which I suspect is relating to, based on the evidence I've got, the ultimate deception against everyone, even those that appear to potentially have a immortality or close to, and I'm going to come to that in a minute, as an ultimate inversion and a deception against everyone. Once we reach that point of ultimate sin, almost hell on earth, where people are more accepting, which we all at the moment appear to be, accepting the crimes against the children. None of us are doing anything about it. Well, not, you know, not that we're seeing anyway. So what was I going to say with that? Okay, yeah, so that was that. Where would I go? Yeah, so the symbol for the it hasn't always been their emblem. They had another emblem beforehand, and then they changed it to the wolf in sheep's clothing. So obviously that's a sorry, the sheep in wolf's clothing. No, it is a, yes, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, isn't it? Sorry. So in other words, deceiving. But that, I think that was done deliberately so that they could use the Fabian Society as an escape route for the bigger system and blame it on a smaller number of people rather than the world's international criminal system that I'm exposing. That symbol, I think, was deliberate for that reason, I suspect. But there is some interesting evidence in relation to people on there, which we'll come to in a minute. Where was I? In March 2026, someone sent me a video regarding the Fabian Society, which is what's prompted me to say this, and it shows that Harriet Harman's son, Joe Dromey, was appointed to a senior role within the Fabian Society in 2025, and had been known as the Red Prince for whatever reason. Now, there is very little information that I can find on Joseph Dromey, sorry. An initial internet search, no records are on company's house, which is very unusual. As mentioned elsewhere in my document, his father, Jack Dromey, had apparently died in 2022 when I was starting to expose the international government fraud, and connects quickly to YMCA companies, Young Men's Christian Association companies, as does Harriet Harman. And Young Men's Christian Associations had been founded in 1844, the same year that Company's House began. So I think the YMCA connection is very big in this. And of course, that would make sense with what I'm exposing with the falsified prophecies. And we're going to come into that in a bit. And we're also going to look at a verse, actually, where potentially they're trying to aim for creating a verse from the Revelations, which I've mentioned weeks ago, but I think it's starting to raise its prominence again in all of this. Now, the Harriet Harman is not only linked to the Young Men's Christian Association, she's also linked to the National Council for Civil Liberties under the Liberty Banner Group, and this makes the research into the paedophile information exchange and the evidence of the World Trade Center disaster and the grant that what was his name, Larry Silverstein, acquired from the US government after the collapse of the World Trade Center building. And obviously you'll all know, hopefully, he would normally have breakfast there every day, and he was told he had something happen and he just wasn't in the building that day. And it seems there's several people that's happened to, which is interesting. Brian Harvey told me that someone was trying to convince him. He's the E17 singer that I spoke to, and I think we mentioned him later, actually, I'm not too sure. And he was in New York at the time, so he told me, and somebody said he should have breakfast there on the day of the collapse. Very fortunately, he didn't. This is what he stated. He then went and had a car accident in 2005, I believe, and he claims that accident and a near-death experience led him to turn to Christ. That's what he claims. So anyway, Larry Silverstein was not in the building at the time, and of course he was the only person in the 31-year history, I think, of the building. So 1973, oh, I don't know, anyway. 1973 is when the completion of the building was done. And obviously it collapsed in 2001, and it never changed hands until July 2001, not a few months before the World Trade Center disaster. It's all staged, everybody, 100% staged. Hi people, I hope you're doing well. Sorry, I'm not looking at the comments too much at the moment. I'm going to come to some questions in a minute. Wesley, the video also mentions, we're talking about the Fabian Society for anyone that's just joined. And in a minute, I'm going to give my email addresses so you can get all of this information. You can verify it all. You don't have to like me. You don't have to trust me. I don't think there's anyone else really you can really trust in terms of they're giving you all of the evidence as to what you're saying. And I understand you don't need to trust me. You don't have to like me. Just get the document, check it out, and you'll see that everything I'm saying is true. I'm sorry to say that even Andrew from Just an Ordinary Citizen, I don't think he can be trusted. I don't think there's hardly anyone out there that you can trust, to be honest with you, for whatever reason. Hardly anyone seems to be talking about the Companies House fraud, which is absolutely what this is all about. It's the key. I believe, as I keep saying, it's probably the key of David, which will have the ability, I believe, through how the people use it, if they decide to use it, it has the possibility to bring heaven on earth. But I think it's really down to you guys to make that happen. Wesley Paul William Streeting. So we mentioned Wes Streeting is also part of the Fabian Society. And this is the information about him. Wesley Paul William Streeting, who was born in 1983, is a British politician who has served as Secretary of the State for Health and Social Care since 2024. So he's had involvement, obviously, in the childcare element since 2024. That's as I was exposing the fraud. He's a member of the Labour Party and has been a member of Parliament for Ilford North since 2015. His maternal grandfather was an armed robber who spent time in prison, and his grandmother became embroiled in his crimes and was incarcerated at HM Prison in Holloway. A Companies House. There was a bit more information on him, actually. That's a shame. Oh yeah, here it is. I've skipped one. Quite interesting history. His two grandfathers, both named Bill, were key figures in his youth. His maternal grandfather, Bill Crowley, was frequently imprisoned criminal who was acquainted to the Cray twins. Okay, so this now links into the infiltration of the royal family again, and it ties in with my family. Cray twins are massively part of the reason we're in this mess at the moment. And they also became, certainly Reggie, according to the research, became a born-again Christian, supposedly, leading into the falsified prophecies as well before he died. And they died, the last one died in 2000, and of course they're twins, twin towers, but very likely irrelevance in that. And the last one died, I think it was Reggie was the last of the two to die, supposedly died, and we'll get to that in a minute. 2000, in the year 2000, which is when the relativistic heavy ion collider in New York was activated for the first time, and obviously the year before the World Trade Center disaster. So they had his family had connection to not only to the Crays, but he often engaged his grandson in lively discussions about religion and politics. Streeting's paternal grandfather served in the Second World War in the Royal Navy, so very likely going to be a connection to Ian Fleming and the Flemings via the Royal Navy. I'm finding multiple links into the Royal Navy from the heads of these people, and Ian Fleming was very, very influential in the Royal Navy and in the intelligence sector as well. Linked into I think it was the Special Intelligence Service. I can't remember offhand. He then became a civil engineer. This is talking about his granddad. He recalled he was a granddad I was closest to. He was a traditional working class Tory. A Companies House search shows that Wes Streeting Associates Limited was incorporated in 2014 and dissolved in 2016 after the Pizzagate scandal started to be exposed. Wesley Paul William Streeting is the only name on the incorporation documents. We know it's him. They're his names, according to what Wikipedia tells us. What's going on here? Chat filter. Automatic chat translation. I'm having something popping up on my phone. That's weird. Saying about a chat filter. Yeah, 2013. Someone's just mentioned, Friday the 13th. Templar Day, yeah, when supposedly they ended up, the church was involved in murdering many Knights Templar, and we have this information that potentially the Knights Templar hid the real bloodline of Christ that was still alive, which wouldn't surprise me if that's going to be the case in this, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be some connection to me somehow into that because of all of the Knights Templar connections that I'm finding via my links into the fraud. A separate search for Wes Streeting shows a duplicate record. So if there's a duplicate record, there's going to be some corruption generally. That's what I'm finding. Oh, it keeps coming up. Keep getting a message popping up about filtering the chat. So, separate search reveals a duplicate record connected to 2 companies, including Redridge Sports Centre Trust Limited, that had been incorporated in 1971, the same year that the World Economic Forum started. And as you all know, I keep saying, within 3 days of me sending my evidence to the World Economic Forum is when Klaus Schwab announced that he was stepping back from that role, and he actually resigned on this exact same day. And that's weird, because you've got, I was just about to say 88, and it had 88 people listening to me, because when he actually resigned, it was on the same day that the Pope died, and they were both 88 years old. So it's all staged. So 1971 was the same year as the my phone's just locked, as the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum, if you don't know who they are, I'm sure you do. They're unelected group, a very small number of people on the scale of things that are driving were driving all of this forward, and seem to be making the decisions around a lot of what's going on at the moment, or so we're being led to believe. I think there'll be a lot of people that we're not aware of behind it. Specifically, you're going to have people linking in with the Vatican and the black nobility families, I would think, or possibly even someone that we've never even heard of involved in this. But I think, as I keep saying recently, I think only literally a very small number of people, potentially even on one hand, know about the plan for the end of all of destruction as an ultimate deception against everybody. The end of creation. So this was incorporated in 1971. The filing history shows a selection of documents and an entry of the 1st of January 1995. And you'll find that quite often with companies, if you can't see the incorporation document in the first document, but it's the last when you come in from this end, because it's the oldest, if that makes sense, the oldest document, then you can normally scroll back through the filing history and you'll see a selection of documents from the 1st of January 1995. When you go into that, you'll be able to find the forgery within that document. You'll see it's a criminal organisation. And that 1995 date is relevant because that was the signifies the international collaborative deception about everything that's going on. And they created the Hacklowitt International Advisory Board Company in 1995, which is on page 40 of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, that links all areas of the fraud together. And that links to the intelligence agencies, the Russian government, as I've said, to the royal family, and a collaborative deception over the plans by these seemingly very sinister people that are trying to, it looks like a lot of them are trying to think they're taking over the world to have a better control system over the world and a one world order, not knowing about the plan to end all of creation. That's what it seems from my evidence. And we're going to come to a little bit more about, these people, and potentially the fact that they've either very close to or potentially almost already achieved immortality through the blood transfusions and the organ transplanting that they're stealing from humanity, from the innocents. But we'll come to that in a minute. The Solicitors Law Stationery Society, that's part of the fraud, links quickly to the NHS, meaning the blood of the innocents and the are on the incorporation document, and it appears to be forged with an altered company number at the top. If you go and look at it, you'll see. So this is what's the name of the company? So if you type in company's house, it's called the Redridge Sports Centre Trust Limited, and you'll see within the selection of documents, you go into that document from the 1st of January 1995, and at the top they've crossed out a company number and put another one next to it, so it looks as though they've forged it to try and make it legitimate, probably as the exposure happens, possibly as the exposure happens. But let's see where it leads. It's quite interesting where this goes. Roy Leslie Flood is in the people record of this company that Wes Streeting is linked to, and connects Redbridge Sports Centre Trust Limited to 6 companies, including LMG Lloyds Limited, that had been incorporated in 1966, the same year as the Church of Satan, and is shown as being in liquidation. In other words, it appears they're considering closing the company down. Most of its filing history has been removed, so they obviously didn't want people seeing what the filing history had. So Companies House has removed most of it, which goes against what Companies House is actually there for, to give public information. This is as they're worried, you see, about what I'm doing, and they're trying to cover their backs. This appears to relate to Lloyds Bank, which is hugely connected to the royals and the apparent blood of the innocents, particularly the children. And Lloyds Bank is on page 40 of the incorporation document of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And when I was younger, one of my mum's friends' husbands was a manager, I believe, of Lloyds Bank, and I was taken to Lloyds Bank when it was closed in Gillingham, which is where there's a Masonic building that links to my former school and the Knights Templar, and I was taken to this Lloyds Bank, and I remember thinking, well, this is very odd. Why are we here? It's not even open. And also, through my inquiries at Exmoor Manor, where my investigation began, I acquired forged bank documents produced by somebody on the Treasury Department of Lloyds Bank. So that was a huge revelation, if you like, in my investigation at that point. So we have this Lloyds connection. John Hunter Purdy connects LMG Lloyds Limited to 10 companies, predominantly in the area. Oh, I'll give you my email address. Sorry, I forgot. If you grab your pens, if you haven't already got it, you need to email me. I was going to send emails today. I haven't done it. I do apologise, because I think what I've found, I'm glad I did do this research, because you'll hear in a minute, to do with the blood, why this is now becoming very important. So my email address is Gary with 1 R. The truth sets us free. It really does, everybody. It sets them free, but they're not able to, it doesn't look as though they're able to tell the truth. So that means, again, you know, I've been criticised for this, but, you know, I won't say it at the moment, but you know what I've been saying over the last few nights. There's two ways that they can be set free, I believe, from this, and that is the truth, which will set us all free, or death is another way that will stop them. But then they're not going to be saved spiritually by doing that, and I don't want them to do that. But if there's, you know, two different options here, we need the truth so that we can bring in a new system and save the children and save creation. But if not, then that other option is the other potential option. And when you think about it, let me give my email address. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm just not thinking clearly at the moment. So Gary Waterman, the truth sets us free at gmail.com. Sorry, that's Gary, the truth sets us free at gmail.com. Gary with 1 R. I'll just say it one more time. Gary, the truth sets us free at gmail.com. And then my Proton one, if you want that, it's Gary, time for freedom. 4 is the word, not the number. Gary, time for freedom at proton.me. I'll just read that to you one more time. Gary, time for freedom at proton.me. So I think what we're seeing here, everybody, is we're almost seeing an inversion of Christ's crucifixion. Christ died on the cross, supposedly, in a crucifixion to absolve humanity of their sins. What I think we're looking at here is these people need to become the sacrifice, like I've been saying over the last few weeks, either through truth or through what they may need to do to stop this continuing. It looks as though they are in a curse or something. I don't know. I don't understand it. I've never been part of the Freemasons. I've never been in a blood cult or anything like that. But it looks as though they just are not able to stop themselves in doing what they're doing. So it's possible, by them now realizing what's really going on behind what they're doing, they're going to be forced into making one of those two decisions. Now, I absolutely don't want that second decision. I want them to be saved through truth. I want them to be saved. I want them to come full disclosure with the truth, and I want them to repent, and I want them to work with us all as a commitment to change the future for humanity going forward and save creation. That's what I want. But if that's not going to be possible, then the other option has to be considered by them. And I'm sorry to say that. And of course, this is only people that are instrumental in partaking in this criminal network and driving it forward and not doing the right thing in turning this round. Anyway, so John Hunter Purdy connects LMG Lloyds Limited to 10 companies, predominantly in the area I was born, including Medway Carers Centre. Medway is the area, you've got Chatham, Rochester, Strood, along the Medway River there. That's where I was brought up. I was born in Chatham, which is where the Chatham House is very relevant and links in with the Institute of Foreign Affairs, which seems to be very influential in the government system and what's going on at the moment. So we have this Medway Carers Centre. They've been incorporated in 2004. Has a registered address of Canterbury Street in Gillingham in Kent, close to the Masonic Building and the lodge, Masonic Lodge, where my school connects to very, very quickly. And also it will be close to the bank that I just told you about in Gillingham that I went to. It has Dunstana Davis on its incorporation document, along with Waterlow's, which the document appears to be forged. This is a name that is used throughout the international government fraud, and that name connects to the Vistra companies, which are the main companies in the centralised criminal system. Waterlow's is the company that links to the currency producer, Waterlow and Sons, which came off of the London Stock Exchange for the first time since 1947, the year of the Doomsday Clock, in July 2025, as I was continuing to expose the international government fraud. That was the same month that they claimed to have discovered the 3I Atlas comet. Yeah, I've mentioned that. Links to major areas of the criminal network. That particular name, the exact name, we're not talking about just a company here, we're talking about the name on an incorporation document. That's how we know it's a centralized international criminal system, because they're using the exact same names. And of course, Companies House would have known that name. They would have seen it on all the incorporation documents. So Companies House are involved in it, obviously, and they're involved in the forgery. It's the governments are involved in this. Paul Jonathan Plumley connects Medway. Oh, where's it gone? Medway Carers Centre to YMCA, West Kent, and National Council of Young Men's Christian Association Incorporated. That is the exact same company that links to Harriet Harman, and then you have the connection to the Paedophile Information Exchange. So this now connects Wes Streeting very, very quickly into the Paedophile Information Exchange. There's fraud all the way through it, back into the YMCA, and that is obviously the Fabian Society. But this is not about the Fabian Society. I believe they are trying to scapegoat and minimalise this, as I've said, to a smaller number of people when you're talking many, many people. Not only does that link to Harriet Harman immediately, we're talking immediately, that's via the Fawcett Society, that makes links to the Virgin Foundation via Richard Branson's mum, who is linked to the Jewish Community Centre UK company, links immediately to Ghislaine Maxwell, and very, very quickly to Gerald McCann, which is Madeleine McCann's father. And we actually come in a minute to Madeleine McCann's mother, which is a critical bit of evidence that I found, and how that appears to be tying in with the blood of the children. This company, also the company we're talking about, this particular YMCA company, is also shown in the research of the Mockery of Christmas / Rome and Saturnalia, okay, that links to Muhammad al-Fayyad, as shown elsewhere. And that appears to be a deception and a mockery of Christmas, linking in with that, where they're actually getting you to celebrate the birth of Christ on the 25th of December, when really it seems to be about a day of the sacrifice of babies and children. Complete mockery. So they basically just see it, watching us, you know, being merry and what have you, and eating the turkey. I can imagine what that symbolises for them. John Stephen Housted connects LMG Lloyds Limited to 19 companies, including Deutwich Golf Club Limited, and various Thomas Walker companies, including Thomas Walker UK Limited. that had been incorporated in 1961 when John F. Kennedy was positioned. They were all working in it together, everybody. JFK was involved as well. It's fairly obvious now from the evidence. This company dissolved in August 2022, a month after Anthony Roberts of Exbourne Manor resigned as it was escalating the inquiries at Exbourne Manor. Critically, it has BDO LLP 5 Temple Square, Templeback on its registered address, making major connections throughout the central criminal system, including immediately to the research of the black nobility families of the Vatican. Jordan and Sons Limited is on its incorporation document, making an immediate connection to Exbourne Manor Limited, Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, where my investigation began. So this is still coming in from Wes Streeting, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. Let me just, my brain's, I'm a bit tired. Yeah, so it's still LMG Lloyd's, isn't it? So yeah, it's coming in from Wes Streeting. Where are we? A Thomas Walker, bearing in mind we've got Walker names there, and a golf club had already been linked to the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers Management Limited. That makes connections to various JP Morgan companies, which means obviously the Flemings, and via DW Company Services to Donald Trump's golf company in the research of the Dunblane massacre. Now, I suspect, based on the evidence I've got, that wasn't a shooting incident at all. I suspect they said it was, said all of these children were killed, and they actually stole those children and took them in for their blood and harvested them for their bloods and their organs. That's what I suspect that was about. And this is why Andy Murray, who linked straight to the Satanic Temple, United Kingdom, and his mum is massively linked in back into Donald Trump, which means you then have a very quick link from that golf club. You have a link to Jimmy Savile, Prince Andrew, the Collider Technology, the Earthquakes company, linking into the Mazzini Garibaldi company that identified, which goes back to the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini. Again, this is like really quickly all connected now. A Thomas Walker had already been linked to the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers. Oh, I've mentioned that. Walker companies and names make important connections throughout the document, including the research of George Harold Walker Bush. George Bush, he had a name of Walker, supposedly, and also from the company, the White House Limited, making links to the Isle of Wight, the Flemings, and major areas of the international government fraud. So you can see how this is tying in with the American government, and has been for a very long time, how it's linking in with the Flemings, the Isle of Wight, where this began, where you had the first wireless communication mast in 1898, which was erected by Marconi, and Marconi is linking to the Vatican. All right, so we're going to come on to, again, how the cell towers are very likely going to be relating, or almost guaranteed now, relating to all of this. Now, we're on the video in relation to the, what's it called? It's gone out of my mind now. A Fabian Society. It mentioned that they had been involved in the foundation of the eugenics company. So this is the research regarding the eugenics company that they were linked to. The Adelphi Genetics Forum is a non-profit learned society based in the United Kingdom. Its aims are to promote the public understanding of human, I mean, put it like that, it's better, isn't it? Of human heredity, and to facilitate informed debate about the ethical issues raised by advances in reproductive technology. All right, now this becomes relevant to what I'm going to be talking about soon, potentially, okay? It was founded by Sybil Gotto in 1907 as the Eugenics Education Society, with the aim of promoting the research and understanding of eugenics. Members such as Francis Galton. Huh? Oh, no, I missed a bit there. Oh, yeah. Members came predominantly from the professional class and included eminent scientists such as Francis Galton. The society engaged in advocacy and research to further their eugenic goals and members participated in activities such as lobbying Parliament, organising lectures, and producing propaganda. Interesting, okay? Propaganda, so misinformation to lead to a different agenda. We're talking about the Fabian Society, anyone that's just joining. I think they've been set up as a scapegoat. I think it's a much, much bigger issue than the Fabian Society. This is an international criminal network involving the blood of the children, and how this appears to be linking with the cell towers and transhumanism, and the ultimate goal that they were having in this is to, it looks like, try and create immortality for a select number of few to take over the world through that immortality, and they use the rest of us as slaves, and how we're going to come into how that transhumanism comes into that, or to wipe out those once they know they have a system in place of enough blood and organs to keep them living. Now, I don't think they're at the point yet, okay, where they can get rid of everybody and sustain their potential immortality through the blood and through the well, we're going to come to that a bit more in a minute, okay? The society engaged in advocacy and research to further their eugenic goals, and members participated in activities such as lobbying Parliament, organising lectures, and producing propaganda. As I've said, sorry, I'm repeating myself. You can tell I'm tired. And now I've lost where I am. Oh yeah, propaganda. It became the Eugenics Society in 1924, often referred to as the British Eugenics Society to distinguish it from others. From 1909 to 1968, it published the Eugenics Review, a scientific journal dedicated to eugenics. Membership reached its peak during the 1930s. The society was renamed the Galton Institute in 1989, which is the year that the World Wide Web was created for CERN. In 2021, it was renamed again to the Adelphi Genetics Forum. The organisation is currently based in Wandsworth in London. Now, 2021, I'd moved back into Exbourne Manor in 2000, and I think it was 20. I moved back in, so they knew I was there. I can't remember exactly when I started asking about the accounts, but they knew I was going to be starting to be getting involved in the company because I was there, and obviously my involvement just got more and more until I was starting to ask to look at the accounts, etc. And then I became effectively the acting chairman until they removed me on the 1st of July 2023, a year after after Anthony Roberts resigned, when I wanted to look at the bank documents. Flat 11, ground floor flat, Exbourne Manor, Anthony Roberts, top floor flat, Delta 4, D4. Exbourne Manor is on Christchurch Road in Dorset. D4, you've got Diana Betts, who was the person on the incorporation document, who was a phlebotomist, which means taking the blood, linking to the NHS, and she links to the Vatican via Anthony de Rea, who is on the incorporation document as well. He links into the military, and the de Reas are linked to the Vatican, and I've established that via the research of the death or murder, apparent murder of Jill Dando. That's flat A11, Anthony Roberts, ground floor flat on the right-hand side of the building. And Diana Betts, top floor flat, Delta 4, top floor flat on the right-hand side of the building. A Companies House search shows Adelphi Genetics Forum had been incorporated as Eugenics Society in 1926, before its name was changed in 1989. Like I said, it's the year that the World Wide Web was created for CERN. And remember, the creator of the World Wide Web lived in Wimborne, and so did the Flemings that initiated my removal from there. And we're going to come to a critical bit of evidence in relation to Tim Berners-Lee, who created the World Wide Web, in a minute, coming from Madeleine McCann's mother. John Alec Beardmore connects Adelphi Genetics Forum to 3 companies, including the Harkness Fellows Association and Transatlantic, that connects directly to the Diamond Light Source company that I'd identified, to Virgin companies, and therefore the Pizzagate scandal. Also to the the Egypt Exploration Society, also via Valerie Billingham, that was initially established via my research from Brian Harvey regarding his former associates, and has now been connected to the research surrounding the apparent technology at Antarctica, the Christchurch earthquake, and its link to Julian Assange and the Doomsday Cult, as well as the British Museum link to the Albert Pike letter via and Mazzini. And that comes in, remember when I mentioned earlier Shafik, who was affiliated to the Fabian Society, she links immediately into the British Museum companies and this Egypt company that we've just found coming in from the eugenics company, which also is affiliated to the Fabian Society. There was something else I was going to say about that. What was I going to say about that bottom bit? Oh yeah, the diamond light source, which this connects directly to. Okay, this is the Harkness Fellows Association, connects directly to the diamond light source. Well, when you research the diamond light source, it's obviously got something to do with the end of the creation event. They've got 50 of them around the world. It links massively into the international government fraud, and it links in with the collider technology. Now, it's not actually a collider, okay? It's some sort of technology that creates the brightest beam of light you could ever imagine. Now, remember what it says in the Albert Pike letter. It says that they will bring about the light of Lucifer. So I don't know exactly how those 50 diamond light source projects are going to relate to all of this. But they're telling us there's 50 of them around the world. They link into the international government fraud, straight into the export manner again via the research of that. And we have a connection now to this eugenics company immediately coming from that record that I've just told you about. And remember, it's all linking in with the paedophile information exchange, the blood of the children. And we're now sort of starting to really get an idea as to what's this is all about and what's happening here. John Alec Beardsmore connects the Delphi Genetics Forum to 3 companies, including I've mentioned that. Oh my goodness me. So I mentioned the Virgin connection. So that means there's a connection to my wife's employer immediately, basically, from this. Okay. Now, my wife is refusing at the moment, it seems, to meet with our tenant, to confirm that she was the one that instructed the solicitor, because she knows if she does that, she's implicated. Well, of course, if she didn't instruct them, then them trying to target me through the solicitor, it doesn't even exist. All right, now they've stolen over £15,000 from me. They've used fake documents through a criminal legal process with no names on the bottom of the documents. So this is what they do. Okay, so they would have known what they were doing was criminal, and they were trying to avoid the accountability by not even putting who created those documents, to use those documents to try and take everything from me to shut me down. And it seems as though they are literally going to try and take everything from me to leave me with nothing left, basically. That's what it seems at the moment. And this involves my wife, Lisa Morton. Now, her dad is linked to the Freemasons, and they live on Lyons. I'll have to get the address, actually. I can't remember it. It's in Ringwood. It's on the document I've already publicised anyway. And their nan, then her nan and granddad lives on Keith Road, which is in St Leonard's in Bournemouth. Not too sure. Lisa's probably living at one of her families. Not too sure. She was working at the range, which is on in Bournemouth. If you're in that area, you'll know the range near home base, I think it is, off the Ringwood Road, is it? And her auntie who's implicated is Michelle Down, who was the manager of the Ringwood NHS surgery. Michelle Down lives in they've all got lovely houses, I wonder why. Out in the she lives out in a little cottage just out towards Burton Way, near Christchurch. So she's implicated in it, linking to Exbourne Manor via that surgery where she was managing, which means the NHS again and the blood of the tortured children, all tying in with Michelle Down as well via the research. That's my wife's auntie. Also, her nan who lives in Spain, Felicity Morton, is also connected to Exbourne Manor. and is compromised by the blood of the children, tortured babies, according to the research, and a plan to end all of creation. You've also got my wife's cousins. You've got, who again, NHS. So Melissa Down, who was NHS near London for a GP surgery. Her husband, Jordan Down, works for some Japanese company. It's gone out of my mind. It's in my document. They're in my document anyway. I put pictures of them. It's not something I want to do, is name them and expose them all. But unfortunately, I have no option when there's children at stake, and it looks as though the end of all of creation potentially. So Michelle Down, former, probably still there, I don't know, probably not, because they're worried about all of the exposures. They're probably moving around and trying to change jobs and all sorts. But yeah, her daughter is Michaela Down, who lives out in just out near Fordingbridge. Again, beautiful house, and her partner is a financial advisor. And who else can I name whilst I'm on here? Lee Morton is Lisa's brother, and he worked in he's probably not there now, but in Ringwood. He was living with Lisa's father, and he worked in a bakery in Ringwood Industrial Estate, and he also links to Exbourne Manor. And he is from a butcher's trade. So is Lisa's father. He was a pig farmer who was quite happily open to talk about that he would shoot a dog, and he said he actually shot a dog, farm dog, because it wasn't doing what he was saying. And he's linked to the Freemasons. Lee Morton said he was a Freemason. Okay. And you've also got Sam King is Lisa's father's partner, who lives with him in Ringwood. Sam King, she does makeup, nails mainly, in the shed at the back of the house. Lovely house again. Lovely. 500,000 when they bought it. They've now done it up with our money, probably. So it's well over $1 million at least. Well over $1 million. And her little brother, and I'm sorry, Miles, but you know, you refused to assist in saving the children. Miles Morton is a member of the military in the tank regiment at Tidworth. And Tidworth, prior to that, he was at the Bovington base, which is where Prince William was based, and they probably are where they are. They're all connected into William, Charles, the entertainment industry. This is why Lee Morton, who was a bit of a chef as well, has done work with some of the actresses and actors. So he's done work with what's her name? Who was in Titanic, which is not a coincidence, with Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, yeah, and some other, I can't remember the other names, because they're all in with them, because they're all connected into this. So Miles Morton prompted the family group that Melissa Down was on, and Jordan Down, so my wife's cousins, were on, to block me from that account when I was trying to send the evidence to them and get them to assist me in all of this. And it was Miles that prompted that removal of me from that account, because they're all compromised. So you've got 3 families of butchers within that family. I'm sorry to say there's very likely going to be a sinister element in relation to that historical line of butchering. And I don't need to tell you what that may be. Okay, a company South Search. We've done that bit. We've done that Egyptian exploration part. And I say to these people again, you have only 2 right options. You come forward with the truth, or you do what needs to be done to stop yourselves carrying on with the crimes of the children and the threat to creation you clearly pose with what you are doing. I've mentioned that bit, haven't I? Mentioned that, yeah. Okay, so Alina Georgieva, probably a made-up name, Bokukova, connects the Delphi Genetics Forum and we're going to get to the critical blood evidence in a minute. Okay, it's really critical, and I advise you to try and get more people on here if you can. Just send some text messages, get them to come on, hear what I'm going to be saying about the blood. It's very, very important to you all. Right, it's going to be a few minutes till we get to that, so send some messages out now and try and get people listening to this evidence, please. It's all true, everyone. You can verify it through the document. You can even verify it from the videos that I'm doing now, because all you've got to do is listen to it, pause it, and go in and check the records. You can verify it all from that. So this name connects the Adelphi Genetics Forum to the Chronic Disease Research Foundation. And that had been incorporated in October 2019, 2 months before the start of the COVID deception against humanity. Jonathan Mark Henry Ross connects this company to Property Litigation Association. It was incorporated in 2005. And it has a registered address of 1 Fleet Place in London, used throughout the fraud. And critically, Russell Cook Solicitors is on its incorporation document. Russell Cook LLP, which will be linked to that, makes links immediately to the corrupted child abuse scandal regarding the Justin Welby and the South Bank inquiry via a company, a St Mungo's companies, and links immediately to Exbourne Manor, where my investigation began, as shown elsewhere. So you can see how quickly this all connects together. I've already mentioned that earlier tonight, and we've now got a link back into the corrupted investigation into Justin Welby, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, and the investigation in relation to the South Bank inquiry. The directors of Property Litigation, this company association, the directors of Property Litigation Association connect to the following companies, making links to the centralised criminal system, the Royals, the De Reas, the BBC, the Vatican, a doomsday cult, and the apparent crimes against children and humanity. Mishcon De Rea is linked to the directors. Waitman's LLP. Hogan Lovells International. These are all solicitors, most of them. Wilson Solicitors. Clyde & Co. LLP. Now, that Wilson one links almost immediately to David Icke via the research, okay? And David Icke, the person that came out and said the world will be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. I'm just going to get rid of this person. Oh, no, you're talking to somebody else. I hope everyone's been nice on here to everybody. I'm just reading some of the comments just to make sure there's nobody. This is the trouble, you see. I can't, when I'm reading stuff, I obviously can't look at all of the comments. So thank you very much. Very nice for you to say, Amy. I really appreciate it. I'm looking at the screen. Why am I an ex-police officer? Okay, so I resigned voluntarily in 2018, not knowing it was because of what I was uncovering at the time. Basically, Theresa May had reduced the police numbers by 20,000 and shut loads of police stations. So we couldn't do the job in the way that we should have been able to, and we were being led to, hi Vanessa, we were being led to, so I'm just reading this. I can't see who's saying that. No, I resigned not realising it was to do with this at the time. I'm trying to explain to you now. Okay, so Theresa May reduced the numbers by 20,000. She shut loads of police stations. We were being led to believe that we should look for reasons not to investigate crime. So that's not why I joined the job. I didn't join the job to not help people. I joined the job to help people. So I left the police. That's the main reason I left. One of the other reasons was, part of the reasons was I collapsed. I took 3.5 weeks off work. But I think this was deliberate. I think something was done to me. I collapsed for about 10 minutes. Never had it happen to me before. Ended up going to hospital. Weeks later, they said there was a AV block with my heart, which is a signal problem between the two chambers of your heart. And I was told that I was going to have a pacemaker. And I was literally going to be having a pacemaker that day that I was in there, and something just did not feel right to me. It felt off. I'd always been fairly healthy. My nickname had been Duracell Bunny because I was just always running around, super fit generally. I was able to do 70 press-ups in a minute, proper press-ups when I first joined the police, and it just didn't fit right with me. So I spoke to the doctor and they said, okay, we won't fit a pacemaker. Never had an issue since then at all. And since I've left my wife, interestingly, I've felt better than I've ever felt. So whether my wife was doing something to me, and I suspect that the Freemason families are doing things to people that they're in relationships with, because what they're doing, it's very clear, they are sending people into relationships, setting up relationships with the innocents, okay, controlling those innocents, and then potentially suppressing them and doing something to them. All right, unfortunately, this has been going on for a very, very long time, everybody. A very long time. We're talking thousands of years of ancestries, okay, all coming to a head now, but it's all being fully exposed. All right, this has been going on a very, very long time. And this explains why my wife, it was a staged relationship between us. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know it was going to be about this. I didn't know, that it was set up, but it was. But so was the introduction to my property, to Exmoor Manor, which is a huge question. Why try and get me to be involved in that property? Unless they might have obviously thought I was a Freemason, but I wasn't. But interestingly, don't forget, we had the link directly to that property to Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile bought the property in Bournemouth in 1972, which was 5 years before I was born. So we've got to seriously ask, why were they trying to link me to Jimmy Savile? Now we're coming back to potentially there's a bloodline Knights Templar system within the criminal system that's trying to use me to expose everything, okay, that are good and trying to use me because they know something about me to expose the entire world system. Now, I didn't know about Jimmy Savile living there until about 3 months ago. Okay, so he lived there. He had a property there until he died. And the big question is, why did they take me to his flat? I'm 95% sure when I conducted my investigation, started in early sort of 2022, I was asking questions. And then obviously things were triggered from July. I became the acting chairman. And as my investigation was progressing, one of the people that owns flats in that same block took me to their flat. And I looked out on the sea, beautiful, beautiful view over Bournemouth Pier and then Boscombe Pier the other side. And it was only 2 or 3 months ago that I literally saw the video of Jimmy Savile sat in a flat on that same side of the building, and I'm 95% sure they took me to Jimmy's flat. Now, that suggests they were trying to trigger me to make the connections. Someone good potentially working within the system, using me because of who I may be to expose the entire system. Now, if you go one next step further, then we have to consider, well, was Jimmy Savile part of something to expose something bigger than just the abuse of the children? That's now what the sort of level we're having to start to think of the deception, because this goes back thousands of years. So I'm now having to seriously consider, everyone, was Jimmy Savile positioned to try and expose the bigger crimes against all of humanity and everything that I'm now exposing? That's what I'm now having to think about all of this, all right? Because he's linked in to the Vatican, okay, which suggests he could be linked in with the Illuminati. There's going to be, I've already got the links in. The Illuminati is very, very critical in all of this. The Knights Templar connection we've already got to my family, okay? So I have to seriously consider that there's a bigger deception. Well, there is a bigger deception behind Jimmy Savile, behind Jeffrey Epstein, and we have to consider that some of these people they're making us believe were bad could have been trying to expose something bigger now. That's how big this is, and I'm going to come to that a little bit more in a minute. Right. So we have this link to the Vatican from all of these companies. Okay, it links to the BBC. This is coming in from whatever we were looking at here, Property Litigation Association. It has, as I've said, the Wilson solicitors, which links very quickly into David Icke, who lived on the Isle of Wight, probably still does. And that Wilson company, they ended up shutting it down. After I exposed it, they were shutting it down. And I've got a confirmation in an article that Jordan's, which is the company linked to Exbourne Manor, was bailing them out and actually helping the Wilson company. So we have all of these companies. We have Nabarro, which links to Donald Trump. These are all through the directors of this one company. Winkworth Sherwood LLP, which links to the high-speed railway link, which is criminal. Okay, so what they'll be doing is laundering money through the high-speed railway link. And we know there's been a lot of scandal around that, and it's been dragging on and on, hasn't it? Evan Britton Limited, which links to one of the council of Christchurch. Russell Cook LLP, that we've already spoken about earlier. Squire Patton Boggs. Charles Russell Speechleys. Denton's UK and Middle East. Olswang LLP. Osborne Clark LLP. Field Fisher, which is the company that has the contract with the BBC. Mayor Brown International. DLA Piper, and various dispute and probate companies. They are all centralised to the Vatican and many, many more. All connected to the Vatican, to the De Reyes, to Exbourne Manor, to the apparent crimes against children. Apparent crimes, but it's more like the blood of the children is what is critical in this, and the organ harvesting. Obviously, the abuse is, I think, a byproduct of that, which is what they're talking about. But ultimately, the real issue in all of this is the blood, and how it seems they're trying to achieve immortality because they have no faith. And this is where you start linking into the three Abrahamic faith deception, where it looks as though they've infiltrated them and introduced the blood rituals, whether it be the Holy Communion via the Christianity or other rituals, in through those three Abrahamic faiths, as a way to try and normalize the blood of the children, to extend life and live off and literally feed off of the innocence on earth. And we're going to come to that in more detail and how that ties in with the transhumanism element. So anyway, we've got all of these companies now. As I've said, you've got lots of dispute and probate companies here. Now remember, this is a property litigation one. So this is how they are compromising the entire system around property that enables them to take over the world, which is what it says in the Albert Pike letter. Okay, but the ultimate agenda is the light of Lucifer upon the earth, which appears to be the ultimate inversion, deception against everyone, and the end of creation. So, of course, those that are believing they're taking over the world and they're getting all of this property and thinking that they're going to have loads of money and loads of land, they're ultimately all being deceived by the ultimate, by the end game in all of this, according to all of my research. Even those that are trying to live, and possibly are living, much longer than we are being led to believe they are. And as I said, we'll come to that. So, yeah. Oh, and just to let you know, obviously land registry is compromised. Okay, so they've, through these criminal documents that they've done, okay, against me, they've literally managed to put the property in just my wife's name using these criminal documents, right? Because they've got people in land registry that are happy to do it through criminal documents. You see, they've got people positioned all over the place. Yeah, you're right. It's a big club. It's a big club someone's put. Absolutely. So they've literally got people in all of the places, or every bank. All right. Every organization has got somebody within it, and probably several people within it that are involved in this, and they are compromised. But now they might not be involved in the blood of the children, but I think many people are going to be. But certainly you've got the fraud, compromised by the fraud, because it's worth trillions of pounds, and you've got the drug trade, and you've also got the sex trade, illegal and legal, linked into this. They're running the whole thing, everybody, and it's completely criminal, completely inverted, criminal under their own laws. Didn't need to be. And that's where you're coming into, they've done it because it's linking in with the falsified prophecies, you see. The people that are running it at the top, they're leading us in to a falsified prophecy and into the potential end of creation. The entire property system is compromised by the crimes. Margaret Brownlee Sutherland connects the company we're looking at. Oh, someone's sent me something. To BFWG Charitable Foundation that had been incorporated as the Crosby Hall Foundation in 1925, and it dissolved in December 2025 as I continued the exposure. It's no coincidence, everybody. 100 years later, all of these companies are closing down with what I'm doing. Okay, it's not a coincidence. The Crosby name, now I haven't confirmed this is the same family, but you will have lots of the same families that have taken over this. Okay, probably a fairly small number of families on the scale of things are running this whole thing. Okay, the head of this. The Crosby family links into the research that I've done, tying in with the death of Stuart Lubbock, which links to what's his name, Michael Barrymore. Okay, and that was established coming from the research of the death of Michael Jackson, believe it or not. All right, it just naturally led in from the death of Michael Jackson. It led into the research and connections that I then made to the death of Stuart Lubbock in the swimming pool with Michael Barrymore, and he worked at a meat factory. Okay, a meat factory, an abattoir. And when you look at that abattoir, the one that I believe it is, it's very critical. It goes into key areas of the fraud, criminal network straight away. So, you know, I don't need to spell out for you probably what that meat abattoir was being used for. And possibly Stuart Lubbock was going to be saying something about it. I don't believe Michael Barrymore would have killed him. I believe somebody else would have come along and taken him out. Michael Barrymore will obviously know a lot more than he's saying. The entire property, mentioned that. So we've got the Crosby Hall Foundation. It was what it was incorporated in, dissolved December 2025. The Crosby name is important, as I've said. Stemming from the death of Michael Jackson. Yeah, I've mentioned that. Appears to be being used. Right, okay, here we go. This is the critical bit of information from today. So everyone, I'm just going to come to some questions, see if there's anyone whilst we have a little break. The man's name is Gary Waterman. Yeah, I'm Gary Waterman. All right, yeah, let's get rid of that person. There you can go. Just ignore people that are compromised. Let me know if, you know, maybe, and I'll have a look. And if they put something that warrants removing them, then I will. But I don't want to remove people unless I absolutely have to. I did it the other day, didn't I? And I was I've made a mistake in my bit of my research. Someone, I didn't pick up on the mistake, but they sent me a message which actually led to the mistake for me identifying it. But it's actually worked out really well. And it was just a quick. Actually, I think we can't. Do I come to it? I think we come to it later anyway, so I'll mention it then. Yeah, I've removed AV Monix. I've removed them. They're gone. I don't like to get rid of people, really, but... Stephen Laxley Lennon is Tommy Robinson's real name. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, sorry, yeah. Massively part of this. Links in through the village companies of Aylsham, infiltration of the royal family, to Initiative Property Management, which is a company they were using as a fake investigation. And then he links to a building right near Exbourne Manor. Massively implicated in it. 100% part of the deception. And that he will be key to the Albert Pike letter, you see, because it talks about in the Third World War, the creating the conflict. It doesn't say exactly in those words, but maybe later, if you remind me and you want me to read it again, I will. The Albert Pike letter, and it talks about the destroying Christianity and destroying the Muslim faith at the same time. Anyway, I'm going to come to the blood. Okay, so blood is a huge element in the criminal network. It's very, very obvious, okay? And appears to be being used to extend the lives of a select few whilst being harvested from the innocent, and how that is now becoming associated with CERN. Research shows that blood plasma is a light amber coloured liquid component of blood in which blood cells are absent, but which contains proteins and other constituents of whole blood in suspension. It makes up about 55% of the body's total blood volume. It is the intravascular part of a extracellular fluid, in brackets all body fluid outside cells. It is mostly water up to 95%. It contains important dissolved proteins, serum, albumins, and a few others. I'm not going to read all of those. Hormones, carbon dioxide, plasma being the main medium for excretory product transportation, and oxygen plays a vital role in an intravascular osmotic effect that keeps electrolyte concentration balanced and protects the body from infection and other blood related disorders. So obviously as you get older, your blood obviously gets older and it's not as effective, which means it will cause and break down the rest of the body. You'll have problems in your body as the blood is getting older. If you renew that blood with young blood, then those problems are not going to happen so easily. If you then also involve illegal transplant, okay, organ donation or organ theft, organ harvesting, then effectively you have probably the ability to live for a very, very long time. And I suspect that they potentially already achieved or are very close to immortality, okay, via their technology that they have been designing secretly, hidden, probably in the MK Ultra program evidence and a lot of the other research they've been doing on humanity. I believe the animal research has been how they have been refining the blood in relation to the Muslim faith and the halal, draining the blood from the animals, refining it and using that, I suspect, to transplant into people's body. Now, somebody told me that transfusion it's only putting blood in body. It's not. Okay, I've researched it. You have there's a name for it. There's another transfusion where they can swap the whole body's blood out. Now, I suspect that's what they've been doing. Okay, we have to, because you've got the halal Islam connection through to all faith groups and to the formationscompany.com, which links world leaders to Fleming Co Limited. That connects to LegalZoom, which is a company that was started in 2001 after the World Trade Center disaster, or the same year. And that links to Ingenious Film Partners. And Ingenious Film Partners is on page 40 of the incorporation document of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And that's a halal company. Literally, it's halal limited. It's been there for us to see it. So I think this is, it's also the halal link has been made to the NHS, to the health service as well. And then you've got lots of bloodstock companies, which is linking to the crimes against the children. So I think they're hiding the blood of the children through the bloodstock trade relating to the horse industry. How that then ties in with the fox hunting on estates, potentially hunting the children. It looks like they're hunting the children on the estates as part of this, and have been for a very long time. That then links into the Ninth Circle evidence of the royal family and the Vatican hunting the children. But I think you've got a lot more hunting of children on estates than what we really believed, would like to believe. So anyway, let me just come back to what I was saying. And of course, they need a lot of money to hide this, okay? And they need to pay for it. People that are wanting to live for longer will be willing to pay vast amounts of money to pay for those transfusions, for that blood to be used that's been stolen from the innocents. And it's worth a lot of money, a lot of money. There's even articles talking about this. You know, this isn't just me now. There's articles saying they've practically got immortality. They're immortal, or they're able to create an immortal being through the blood. They're practically telling us it, everybody. And I think for a very long time that they probably had the ability to live a lot longer than what we will be, the ones that they are basically living off of. And I think the lady Freemason that said that they were feeding off of the lower class, I believe she actually meant they were feeding. She didn't say, you know, it wasn't she didn't explain it as in that way, but I suspect they are, through the blood and through the organ harvesting, using the healthcare system predominantly to do that. And we're going to come to, in a minute, how the cell towers are very relevant in all of this, but also how that links in with transhumanism. Plasma Power Limited, a company called that, had already been connected to Plessey Group Holdings. Now, plasma is the name, remember, of the particular part of the blood that's so important. Plessey Group Holdings Limited, that connects immediately to Madeleine McCann via Madeleine's fund, leaving no stone unturned via the London Law Agency on its incorporation document. Okay, that is the Plessey Group Holdings Limited. Okay, linked straight to the Madeleine McCann company from its incorporation document. It also links immediately to Keir Starmer via the Death Penalty Project Limited, and it links via Bates, Wells and Braithwaite to the P. Diddy investigation of child trafficking, because he used Bates, Wells and Braithwaite for his solicitor. And Bates, Wells and Braithwaite is on the incorporation document for the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Research shows that the Plessey Group that we just mentioned, Holdings Limited, appears to make a reference to a company that Tim Berners-Lee worked at, who had worked at the CERN previously in 1980, I believe, which is the year that they erected, or they want us to believe they erected, but it looks as though it was there, the Georgia Guidestones, that represented an upcoming man-made apocalyptic event. He then left CERN. He wasn't there very long, and he then started working on the World Wide Web that came out in 1989. That was released, okay? And prior to it being released, he worked at Plessey, which was a company in Bournemouth, where my investigation began. And he lived in the village or town of Wimborne, which is where Deborah Fleming and John Fleming lived, that initiated my removal from Exbourne Manor. So where were we going with that? Yeah, so I've mentioned that. Dorset, where the Flemings lives, had initiated my removal as a director after refusing to file forged bank documents. Yeah, Plessey Group Holdings Limited. I'd identified this company, Plessey Group Holdings Limited, via research of Kate Healy. Kate Healy is the name of Madeleine McCann's mother, Kate McCann. That's another name for her. If you go and look at it, you'll be able to see. And that's immediately connected. You know, you've got the Plesseys one company away, I think. It's not even that. I think it might even be connected to the same company via another director. It's not going to be a coincidence, everybody. So you've got the link to CERN, not just from this Madeleine McCann part of the research, multiple others. Okay, remember, when you come in from the skin of Madeleine McCann appearing to have been worn by Prince Harry in his shoes at the time of Jeffrey Epstein's arrest, or around the time of Jeffrey Epstein's arrest in the same month, for a prolonged period of time, there was an article about it. That connects back into the Madeleine McCann case via the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce, which then goes back in from there to Donald Trump, to the Mazzini Company, to the Earthquake Company, to the Royal Family, to Jimmy Savile, and everything else that we're talking about. Now, with all of this, of course, we have to consider. Now, look, Donald Trump is connected in many, many, many ways. Many, many ways. They're definitely either he's massively involved, or they've set it up to make it appear as though he is. Okay. Now, bearing in mind what I was saying about Jimmy Savile earlier, and why they would introduce me to specific bits of information and evidence that would then lead to me acquiring more evidence to expose the whole system, we've got to consider that there's people working within the criminal network that are trying to facilitate me in what I'm doing somehow. But they're still targeting me. I'm still having it, so there's probably, they're probably under a lot of pressure. The ones, if there are people there trying to help me, then they're obviously struggling to help me because they're stripping me of all of my assets, it seems, to try and shut me up. But, this is something I now have to consider, especially what I'm going to be talking about with how big this now potentially goes, okay? So, Tim Berners-Lee, we've got... bear with me, I'm just trying to find where I was again. Okay, in relation to the plasma I'm just going to read a little bit of evidence. It appears that they have managed to remove some research from my document regarding the following information, showing how important it likely is. Now, I'm 90% sure I'd put it into my document. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't find the information anywhere else, and I wouldn't have deleted it. And I'm pretty sure I'd put it in my document, but I can't be 100% sure. Anyway, so I've redone and gone into this evidence again. On the 17th of December, 2025, articles emerged regarding plasma scientist Nuno F. Gomes Loureiro, sorry, I'm pronouncing that wrong, having been murdered at gunpoint in the United States. Authorities have intensified their searches, is from the article, for clues after a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology was fatally shot at his home near Boston. Nuno F. Gomes, with a surname, age 47, a nuclear science and engineering professor from Portugal, was shot multiple times on Monday and died on Tuesday morning in hospitals. Brooklyn police and MIT officials said no one is in custody, and police are treating the incident as an active and ongoing homicide investigation. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office said that Loureiro joined MIT's faculty in 2016. That's when the Pizzagate scandal became exposed, and was named as director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center in 2024. Now, what they're doing, it's very clear what they're doing, and you can see it through my research. So they have same names for two completely different types of industry. Okay, I can see it. So Atlas, for example, is linking to nuclear weapons, and Atlas is linked to CERN. It's the experiment that they conducted at CERN. This gives them the ability to launder the money and hide the truth through the same names of companies. They're also using acronyms, okay, as well, which is, as you know, the first letter of each word within a company name. And that gives them the ability to use other names to fit that acronym, different company names, if you see what I mean. Anyway, it says at this time no one was in custody. I've mentioned that. 2 days later, further articles emerged that the suspect, Claudio Manuel Neves Valenti, had been found dead. Company's house search for the victim shows the same name, Nuno Loureiro, of a similar age, and with a correspondence address in Portugal connected to Probely Limited, Probely, Probely, that had been incorporated in November 2019, the month before the COVID outbreak, and having dissolved in January 2026 as the exposure continued. It has 71 to 75 Shelton Street, Covent Gardens, London on its registered address. Well, that links to the following areas of the research, that exact address. This includes the research of Stephen Hervey, who was the judge in the inquiry into Princess Diana's death. These are immediate connections, by the way, not just 3 companies away from them. Immediately to Angela Rayner, positioned as the Deputy Prime Minister in the United Kingdom in 2024. She then resigned as I continued my exposure. Sweeney Todd, the Sweeney Todd Group, which is a group they've set up. And when I mentioned those companies to you earlier that have been centralised to Field Fisher, it's the same companies. So the whole legal system has been also centralised to an organisation called the Sweeney Todd Group. And the Sweeney Todd refers to the slitting of victims' throats and putting them in pies. PIE, Paedophile Information Exchange. And I've done lots of research surrounding that. I'm just going to put my phone on charge, bear with me. There you go. Sorry, I pressed the mic button. I pressed the microphone button. So we've got this Shelton Street address. I was just saying, I actually just feel sorry for these people. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend people by saying that. I just feel very sorry for them. You know, they've been brought up with this deception. You're talking thousands of years of probably the crimes against the children, them fearing death. I actually, someone said, no, I don't think this is about them fearing death. I think they know what's going to happen to them. Yeah, but to get to that point in the first place, they must have feared death so much that they were trying to, you know, there obviously was a reason they were trying to extend their life, isn't it? And someone said, well, you know, maybe they're just worried because they know they're going to go to hell. It's like, well, yeah, but what about in the first point when they were trying to extend their lives before they got into that sin? That must have been surely because they didn't have a belief. Surely they didn't believe in, you know, why would you start drinking people's bloods and children's blood if you know? So it's got to be about a lack of, someone's put to keep control. It's got to be about a lack of faith. If you want to extend your life to the point. Now, the difficulty is none of us want to live, none of us want to die generally. But when you're in touch with the Creator, you're happy to accept that your time is what it is. You know, we know that we can't all be immortal. If the entire world was immortal, then the world would be overrun by people, wouldn't it? This earth would be overrun by people. We wouldn't survive. Nothing would survive. And we haven't just got to think about us. We've got to be thinking about nature and the billions of other life forms that we're killing continuously. You know, we've got to think of them as well. But you know, it seems as though we've got a very small number of people that want to live as long as they can and victimize anybody else to do that. Well, you can't live in a world like that. You can't live in a world where it's a direct violation of the Creator, because it's a direct violation of moral conscience. Because they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't want themselves harmed. So anyway, let me get back to, and then we'll come to a bit more of a chat about that, and I'll answer your questions. I just want to get this evidence done because it's pretty important, this bit. No, I'm on here a bit late tonight, but so we're still on this. We've got this address. It features really critically 71 to 75 Shelton Street. This is another clue that we've got a centralized criminal system, okay, because they're using the same addresses. You listen to the areas where these are. So the judge for the Princess Diana, as I said, death inquiry, the actual judge, that's the French judge, okay, that was involved in the inquiry. You've got Angela Rayner, as I've said. You've got the Sweeney Todd group, directly to paedophile Jonathan King, convicted paedophile who was convicted in the same month as the World Trade Center disaster. September 2001 is when he was convicted. I don't think that's going to be a coincidence. Lee Clegg of the Martial Law Authority, the research from him, straight away you get this same address. He's affiliated to the Paedophile Information Exchange, to the United Nations. But you've got, sorry, Lee, but you are linked into the Paedophile Information Exchange, I'm sorry to say, whether you know that or not. You've got a connection via that address to NATO, to the research that I've done on NATO, to missing Georgina Gasella, to the Southport stabbings of 2024, to Anthony and Nicole Kidman, the actress and Australian father, her father, Stephen Lawrence inquiry, to the threat from directed energy and CERN via FCC companies. Okay, now this is going to be relevant to what we're going to be talking about in a minute. FCC companies, likely relating to the Future Circular Collider program. But what they've done again, you see, you've got another organisation with the same acronym that links to communication networks, which means the threat of directed energy. Again, hopefully you can hear me. Someone's put no sound. I think these are people that don't have a belief. And there's a reason I tell you that, because everyone around me in my life didn't believe in anything. I had many conversations with people, didn't believe in anything. Lisa's dad, okay, Nicholas Morton, linked to the Freemasons, needs to be arrested, really. He was very keen to talk to me about the what am I talking about? Stephen Hawking's and the expansion of the universe and black holes. Well, I now know why, because he's linked almost directly into CERN by the research. So he knew exactly. Now, whether that was him trying to give me a bit of a heads up, you need to look into this as you're moving forward, Gary. I don't know. But, none of them are speaking out about this. They could be doing what I'm doing. Let's face it. They could be getting in a tent and exposing this whole lot and doing the right thing like I am, and just doing what is the right thing. But they're not. They're just keeping quiet and they're carrying on, allowing me to literally be the person that's facing all of the challenges and potentially going to lose everything in this. But anyway, he said basically he doesn't believe in a creator, but he's open to be changed on that. Now, that was pretty much the same for most of the people in my life, other than my mum just wouldn't even consider a creator. Diana Betts wouldn't consider a creator in my conversations. She's the one from Exbourne Manor who initiated my removal. So, I don't believe that's the case. I believe these people are so lost as to what to really believe. They're so scared. They're so scared of death. And that's why I think they've got involved in the blood to extend their lives. It also links to, not only, we've got FCC companies, links to the Doomsday Cult, in the research of the Doomsday Cult, Sasha Stone via the International Tribunal of Courts of Natural Justice, and they link to the CIA, former CIA person, and the blood of the tortured children, and to the Vatican. I had information that he was linked to the Vatican, and I found information that supports that. To the White House Limited, again, via this address. To artificial intelligence via that address. The former chair of the US President's Intelligence Advisory Board in the United States, obviously. The research surrounding Jim Carrey, which links in with the Illuminati around that research. Angela Merkel, who has links into the Nazi deception as well. She was the German MP in Scotland. To York, the research of York, which is so important in this. To Deborah Fleming, linking with the Association of Police Chief Officers of the United Kingdom. To the research of former MP for the area of Exbourne Manor, which is Tobias Elwood, and for Jimmy Savile's property. So that's where my investigation began. And to the research of DARPA. Many of you have heard of research of DARPA, research and development with specialised technology and weaponry systems, all leading to major areas of the criminal network and apparent crimes against children as shown elsewhere. So that address links all areas of those researchers immediately. A separate search shows a Nuno Guilherme. Remember, we're speaking about this guy that was shot, supposedly, born in 1972, connected to Rovensa UK Limited, that had been incorporated in 2021, and it has a registered address of CSC CLS in brackets UK Limited that makes immediate critical connections to Vanguard International Limited in the research of Candice Owens, and has been incorporated with the same companies as Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, where my investigation began. Vanguard is a massive company, $11 trillion in assets held in that company, according to the research. Another record shows a Nuno Miguel Loureiro Martins, so almost the same, slightly added names to it, 1983, connected to Prime Medical Management Limited. They had been incorporated days before Nuno's apparent murder, and they had been appointed in February 2026, okay, which is after, obviously, the death. So we've got to consider, was this death fake, not real, and someone wanted me to find it? This obviously creates an apparent connection to the medical industry and the blood crimes against humanity that is so important in all of this. The Plasma Science and Fusion Centre, or PSFC, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which relates to him, is a university research center for the study of plasma's fusion science and technology. It has more than 250 researchers, staff, and students across 7 labs, and is one of MIT's largest research labs. It was originally founded in 1976 as the Plasma Fusion Center at the request and in collaboration with the US Department of Energy. The original grant was for construction and operation of tokamak reactor I'm not going to go into that, it's all technical stuff. They managed to fuse atmospheres with a plasma temperature of 35 million degrees, 600 trillion fusion reactions. Lots of technical information about it here. I'm not going to, let me move forward a bit. From the 18th of August to the 23rd of August 2025, Plasma Science and Fusion Center hosted their 6th Computational Physics School for Fusion Research. This program originally began in 2019. So this was not that long before he was apparently shot. Only like a few months before. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, where this particular organisation is held, is a private research university in Cambridge, Massachusetts, United States, founded in 1861. That's obviously 10 years before the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini, 9 years before the infiltration of Rome from the research. Company's house was incorporated in 1844, so was YMCA. That's not long, that's around the time that the Savile Club was originally founded, which links is a gentlemen's only, men only, would have been sex-related club. To advance so it was founded in 1861 to advance useful knowledge. The university was played a significant role in the development of many areas of technology and science. A company's house search for MIT shows MIT Technology Limited, having been incorporated in 2016 as the Pizzagate scandal was being exposed, and it dissolved in August 2019, the month that cell towers appear to have been erected in Wuhan in China. It has the Formations Company.com on its incorporation document. This is exactly the same company that I mentioned earlier, linking with Halal, the company linking with the medical industry, world leaders, Fleming Co Limited, LegalZoom, and into Ingenious Film Partners, which is back onto page 40 of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Interestingly, it also links to a rapid response company immediately in my research of the rapid response members who targeted me, threatening to steal my homes. And obviously my motorhome was stolen, and it is theft, everybody, because of the deception behind it, the crime behind it. They make connections to my family via my former school. From the Knights Templar connection, you then hit the rapid response research as well. A company's house search shows that MIT Technology Limited, so a search for that particular building now, okay, for that facility where he was involved in, this person that was shot, having been incorporated, I've mentioned that, 2016, and it dissolved in August 2019, the month that cell towers went up, mentioned that. Ingenious Film Partners, yeah, mentioned that. LegalZoom, mentioned that. Now I'm just going to go through the connection to the 3 different faiths and the blood, and there will be more, but this is just the initial bit of research. I've read some of this the other night, but there's a bit more evidence in here now, and you'll hopefully get to realise how significant the blood element is in everything I'm talking about, and how it ties in with the 3 Abrahamic faiths that have been infiltrated in all of this. Blood is relevant to all 3 Abrahamic faiths in one way or another, according to the research. Islamic dietary laws are laws that Muslims follow in their diet. Islamic jurisprudence specifies which foods are halal. The dietary laws are found in the Quran, the holy book of Islam, and I hope there's people listening here from Islam, from the Islam faith, as well as in collection of traditions attributed to Islamic prophet Muhammad. In Islamic law, oh, there's a particular name, it's Arabic, so I'm not going to try and pronounce that, is the prescribed method of slaughter For halal animals, it consists of a swift, deep incision to the throat with a very sharp knife, cutting the windpipe, jugular veins, and carotid arteries on both sides, but leaving the spinal cord intact. The carcasses should be hung upside down for long enough to be free of the blood, so they drain all of the blood. Slaughtered animals must be acknowledged as sentient beings and slaughtered painlessly while reciting the basmala and takbir. The butcher is required to call upon the name of Allah individually for each animal. If the animal is treated poorly or tortured while being slaughtered, the meat is haram. Conversely, animals slaughtered for food may not be killed by being boiled or electrocuted. Animals strangled or beaten to death, or that died by falling or due to wild animals, are also expressly forbidden. A record for Priti Patel, the same name as the former Home Secretary overseeing the UK police constabularies, shows many records under that name. I thought I'd seen a connection to her name to a halal company, but cannot find it again. One record connects to Lazarus Partners, incorporated in 2016, and it dissolved in May 2022 as it was exposing the government fraud. Lazarus makes the link to Sacha Stone and back into the Vatican and the blood of the tortured children, okay, via a Lazarus Foundation that he's part of a company called Lazarus. AJ Patel connects to 6 companies from this company, including Middle East Travel and Tours. This from a record for a name of Priti Patel, who was the Home Secretary around the time that I was exposing everything. And that means they overseeing the police constabularies, all right, which the police are so heavily implicated in this. All chief constables, all Association of Police and Crime Commissioners are all part of this deception against humanity, and a lot of lower ranking officers as well. AJ Patel connects to 6 company, a Middle Eastern company. It was incorporated in 1994. It has 14 Buckingham Palace Road on its record, which has already been linked to the royals. The company name is missing, which is, I've only seen that on 3 or 4 companies out of over 400,000 I've looked at probably, and this is one of them. Company name is missing. It has Ian Saunders and Waterlow's on its incorporation document. That makes correct. If you were to search Ian Saunders in the document, you'll see it's in every area of the research practically. It's literally all the way through. There's certain names that crop up all the way through the research. And it's got Waterlow's again, which means it will link back to the Freemasons, and that links with the main currency producer. Patel also connects to Prime Time News Limited, that had been incorporated in August 2007, not long before Expo Manor Freehold Limited had been incorporated. Where my investigation began, Douglas Nominees and Douglas Company Services is in the incorporation document. I suspect these will relate to Douglas Smith, the advisor for the last few Prime Ministers. Halal Limited had been incorporated. This is Halal, the Halal company that I was mentioning earlier, had been incorporated on the 9th of January 2017 after the Pizzagate scandal had been exposed, and it is shown as being in the process of being struck from the register. Okay, so they're trying to get rid of them because they're realizing I'm exposing probably more than they really expected in all of this. On the incorporation document, it's got the formationscompany.com, which again links to the world leaders, as I said earlier, and that includes Benjamin Netanyahu, the research of him, Donald Trump, the leader of Iran, the leader of, I think is it Qatar or one of the other Middle Eastern countries. Links to Fleming Co Limited and LegalZoom, remember, and into the Ingenious Film Partners company again on page 40. So that's Halal Limited. So of course, huge question raised. Why is the leader of the Israel, okay, linked to halal via the research? Why is Donald Trump linked to halal? Why is the leader of Iran linked to, well, obviously he's more likely to be, but they're all working together under halal. What would it be about halal and the Islamic faith that unites them? The blood, the draining of the blood from the animals, and how that is used in the extension of life. Let's go back to I've mentioned that. It links to the care system as well via the research. Fleming Co Limited I've mentioned. This means that the 3 Abrahamic faith representative linked to halal and the blood possibly being drained from the animals and used in transfusion to steal healthy blood to extend the lives of the rich and those controlling the system. The filing history shows that the address was changed twice on the 9th of February 2022 in this company, as I was conducting early inquiries at Expo Manor, and not long before Putin announced his special military operation. Because what I've done is I've triggered the World War III element, it looks like, of the Albert Pike letter, not knowing about the Albert Pike letter at the time, but because I was starting to expose everything, they've triggered all of these falsified prophecies. You got the Putin, and then obviously you got the attacks in Israel on the 7th of October 2023, as I was really escalating the fraud, the exposure of the fraud. It was changed again. Is that someone there? No. Changed again in June 2022, as I was escalating my inquiries at Expo Manor, and the month before Jimmy Savile, Anthony Roberts resigned. Another record shows UK Halal Foods Limited, that had been incorporated in 2017 after the Pizzagate scandal had been exposed. It has Peter Valaitis and Duport companies in its incorporation document, a name and company used throughout the fraud. Duport makes quick connections to the centralised criminal network, including immediately to a company called World Black Economic Forum Limited. I suspect the black part within that is the symbolism regarding the black nobility families of the Vatican linked into the World Economic Forum. It links to Julian Assange's the research of Julian Assange's mother's name and the Doomsday Cult, to the research of Bill Maloney, who publicised the Hort de la Garonne children's deaths on Jersey, to the research of Richard Moore, the former head of MI6, to Sarah Ferguson, and we're going to come to Sarah Ferguson a bit later. Critical evidence. I've now linked almost directly to Sarah Ferguson, to Blackpool Pleasure Beach Company, which links to the infiltration of the royal family, and also back into the black nobility families via Peter Valaitis, say exactly the same name, linking to Deborah Evershed, who links to Juliet, what's her name? Lewin, who claims that her granddaughter was abused within the care system. Okay, you've got the links. So I believe she's part of the deception. Deborah Evershed is her friend, and was in her house when I was contacting her, and I knew she was linked to the fraud, so I was trying to tell Juliet to be careful, and she didn't seem to care, and she went on and carried on, and that's because she's part of the deception. And it was Deborah Evershed's sister Jane that was working alongside Sasha Stone, and Sasha Stone links to the blood of the tortured children, and I had information linking him to the Vatican, Cyrus Orsini, so I researched Orsini, and it links to the exact same address that we mentioned earlier, the BDO LLP Temple Chambers one. All right, that links into the research all the way. That's massive, all the way through the research. Now Deborah, this shows you how connected they are, and Juliet Lewin is, because there was correspondence between myself and Deborah Evershed, and I got her to confirm in a WhatsApp message that it was a record for her name. She confirmed it was. They then went into the record, removed that message from that encrypted message, from the encrypted messaging that I was doing with her, because they realized what I was starting to expose. But I'd already screenshotted it and got the evidence to prove that they removed that link made to Deborah Evershed. So we know that Deborah Evershed, Jane Evershed, Sasha Stone, Juliet Lewin are all massively implicated in the deception against humanity, because they had the ability to infiltrate an encrypted messaging system to remove that link, which I can prove. And I hope they're listening to this, because they are all being fully exposed. So we're still talking about the same name and address. It connects to the research of Cyril Smith and the apparent crimes against children and the threat of directed energy. That then links in because he was the MP for the what you call it area, Rochdale, which is where the grooming Sorry, my signal went a little bit there. It's all part of the deception, everybody. Okay, it is a staged deception to make you think this is about Muslims and skin color, and that you're being invaded. It's a deceptive, infiltrated side of this, linking with the Albert Pike letter. When you look at the Albert Pike letter, you'll understand it. You'll see. To bring about the light of Lucifer. So this linking to Cyril Smith, he was the MP for the area, and he was the MP, I believe it was until 1992. Well, that is the year that the Catholic Church became a legal entity, and when the Company's House records started to become electronic. All right, and there's loads of research I've done around Cyril Smith, and that links back into the threat of directed energy, all right, via the research of Cyril Smith, and we'll come to a little bit more on the cell towers in a minute and how this probably all relates. So this is, remember, we're talking about UK Halal Foods Limited. So we've got this halal connection into, and the Evershed link, Deborah said it wasn't connected to her family, the Eversheds company, the solicitors firm. I suspect it is. That links in with the police organisations. She lied. I suspect she lied to me and said she wasn't, her family was nothing to do with it. But she had access to remove the WhatsApp, and she links into that name that we've just been talking about. And you've got links into the police from there. Whatever Shed's companies link back in onto Field Fisher, to Mishcon de Reya, to the Vatican, the crimes against children and everything else, and the blood of the children. So anyway, what about Christianity? So that was a little bit of evidence in relation to the Muslim faith and Islam. The Eurochrist, also called Holy Communion, the Blessed Sacrament, or the Lord's Supper, is a Christian rite considered a sacrament in most churches and an ordinance in others. Christians believe that the rite was instituted by Jesus Christ at the Last Supper, the night before the crucifixion. Look, I suspect the crucifixion is a deception. I suspect that Jesus Christ existed, but I don't believe, based on the evidence and the amount of deception and their infiltration within all of publications, I suspect that the crucifixion is a deception, and probably you've got the true bloodline of Christ on earth, as in Jesus and Mary probably did have a baby, and I think that's going to be a big part of the deception in all of this. Giving his disciples bread and wine, passages in the New Testament state that he commanded them to do this in memory of me, while referring to the bread as my body and the cup of wine as the blood of my covenant, which is poured out for many according to the synoptic gospels. Now, what a great way for them to try and infiltrate the consumption of blood deceptively in through religion, through faith, okay, by saying it's okay, you're drinking, symbolizing the blood of of Christ. Well, that to me is a mockery of Christ. You know, if you really adore, or what's the word, you pray to a specific idol or god or whatever, surely it's the ultimate mockery. You're symbolizing eating their body and symbolizing drinking their blood. I mean, you wouldn't do that to I think that's a mockery. I think that's a mockery deliberately infiltrated into Christianity so that the blood of the children can become normalized through that faith, as well as the other faith groups. But when you look at the foundation of Christianity, it looks as though it can't all be a lie, because of the element of love thy neighbour. And I can't remember exactly what it says about that, but let's face it, as I keep saying, and I will keep saying it because it's so very important, if we all treat everybody how we would want to be treated in a rational state of mind, none of this would have ever happened, because these people would not harm themselves. These people would not steal from themselves. So if you had that as the foundation, then none of this would have happened. So Christianity is very important in all of this, but how it seems as though it's been infiltrated and they've used it in a way to actually mock the faith, because the drinking of blood to extend the lives, well, that's the ultimate mockery, isn't it, of a creator. Well, I'm so scared. I don't believe that you're gonna save me after my death, and therefore I'm gonna have to try and extend my life to as long as I can by causing the suffering of others in doing so. Well, it's the ultimate mockery of the creator and moral conscience, isn't it? It's the complete opposite. And many Christians, I suspect, have been deceived. Many Christians for centuries over this. The Catholic Church states that the Eucharist is the body and the blood of Christ. Under the species of bread and wine, it maintains that by the consecration, the substance of the bread and the wine actually become the substances of the body and the blood of Christ. Oh, that's interesting, yeah. Transubstantiation is apparently the name for that. Almost not dissimilar to transhumanism, which we're going to be talking about. While the form of While the form and appearance of the bread and wine remain unchanged, Company's House Search shows Eurochrist less the T. So they've removed the T, right? The rest of it's exactly the same. Limited was incorporated in 2014, and it dissolved on the 8th of June 2021. Books Limited is on its incorporation document, and Susan Clay, this is an extra bit of evidence I found, Susan Clay is the only director, which we'll come to in a minute, and that becomes very relevant. Company's House Search shows that the App Accounting Group Limited had been incorporated as Liquid Numbers in January 2011, the month before the Christchurch earthquake. Jeffrey Epstein had been involved in a company called Liquid Funding. This is Liquid Numbers Limited. Its name was changed to Books Limited, which is why I've shown it, because Books Limited is linked to that Eurochrist company. The company previously mentioned on the 17th of May 2011, after the Christchurch earthquake, it was changed again. Its name changed. So before and after the Christchurch earthquake, linking in with the blood of Christ being drunk, supposedly. It has an address of Port Solent, Portsmouth, where Deborah Fleming had been the NHS chief executive. That address connects to Ian Fleming, okay, where he was in the Royal Navy. Deborah Fleming had been in the NHS, as I said, Royal Navy base, etc. Yeah, okay. A Collider Limited, linking to my families, also has a Liquid previous name and an Edge former name, appearing to make references to Epstein, because Epstein was linked to Liquid Funding and Edge, the Edge Foundation, which links to Siemens, and that then links to, I'm going to have to change my position. Oh, my back. Sorry, just have to lay down. I'm sorry, I should have shaved. Okay. Pink Accounting Resources Limited is in the People Record and connects to 65 companies, including Cambridge Advisory Partners, that had been incorporated in 2009, the year of the incorporation of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, that links most areas of the fraud together. It's also when I became a director of Exbourne Manor 2 weeks prior to that being incorporated. So the company we're talking about dissolved on the 24th of July 2012, within 3 weeks of CERN claiming to have discovered the God particle that links with the research of Jeffrey Epstein and Stephen Hawkins, who also links with Cambridge, where he studied the... why is it not? Let me zoom up. Where he studied the expansion of the universe, which links to the year of the Church of Satan, and directly to Elon Musk and a company called Jesus Copyright. Now, this is very interesting, as if they're trying to recreate Jesus. This links directly to Elon Musk. Elon Musk links to my brother-in-law's family, via export mana link directly as well. Okay. Now they've tried to remove. Oh, what's that? 49 second was